The rain slammed against the diner's windows, a relentless drumbeat that matched the pounding in Elias Carter's chest. He sat alone in a corner booth, staring at the coffee growing cold in his mug, the words still burning in his mind. "You're too broken to bond, Elias. Nobody's gonna want that." Shane's voice, sharp as a switchblade, had cut deeper than any wound Elias had ever known. He'd fled New York City 3 months ago, leaving behind the jagged pieces of a life shattered by rejection. Shane, his first love, had been the golden boy of their Brooklyn neighborhood, charismatic, athletic, the kind of guy everyone adored. Elias, with his quiet demeanor and scarred past, had been invisible until Shane noticed him. For a fleeting year, Elias thought he'd found his place, his person. But Shane's betrayal, his cruel dismissal in front of their friends, had sent Elias running to this nowhere town in West Virginia, chasing rumors of a community that might accept someone like him, a gay omega in a world that prized strength and conformity. The diner's neon sign flickered, casting a red glow across the cracked linoleum. Elias glanced up as the door swung open, admitting a gust of damp air and a man who seemed to fill the room with his presence. Tall, broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair and eyes like a storm over the Atlantic, he moved with the easy authority of someone who owned every space he entered. The locals nodded to him, some with respect, others with unease. Elias didn't need to hear the whispers to know who he was: Caleb Warwick, the alpha of the Warwick pack, a family that ran this town like it was their personal kingdom. Caleb's gaze landed on Elias, and for a moment, the world stilled. Those eyes held something: curiosity, maybe, or recognition, before Caleb turned to the counter, ordering a black coffee with a voice that rumbled like distant thunder. Elias ducked his head, heart racing. He'd heard stories about Caleb, a widower, a leader, a man whose word was law in these mountains. And, more recently, the father of Shane Warwick, who'd followed Elias here after learning he'd fled to Caleb's territory. "Mind if I sit?" The voice snapped Elias out of his thoughts. Caleb stood by the booth, his expression unreadable but not unkind. Elias blinked, caught off guard. He nodded, too stunned to speak, and Caleb slid into the seat across from him, his large frame making the booth feel smaller. "You're new here," Caleb said, not a question. His tone was steady, but there was a warmth to it that Elias hadn't expected. "Heard you came in a few months back? Running from something." Elias's fingers tightened around his mug. "Just needed a change," he mumbled, avoiding Caleb's gaze. He wasn't ready to spill his story to a stranger, let alone the father of the man who'd broken him. Caleb leaned back, studying him. "This town's small. People talk. They say you're an omega, and not just any omega one with a past." His voice softened. "I don't listen to gossip, but I do trust my instincts. And they're telling me you're carrying more than you let on." Elias's throat tightened. He wanted to bolt, to escape the weight of those words. But something in Caleb's steady presence kept him rooted. "What do you want from me?" he asked, barely above a whisper. Caleb's lips curved into a faint smile. "For now, just to know your name." "Elias," he said, the word feeling like a surrender. "Elias," Caleb repeated, as if testing its weight. "Good to meet you. I'm Caleb Warwick." He extended a hand, and Elias hesitated before taking it. Caleb's grip was firm but gentle, and for reasons Elias couldn't explain. It sent a shiver through him, not of fear, but of something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. The next few weeks were a blur of small-town life and unexpected encounters. Elias worked odd jobs at the diner, trying to keep his head down, but Caleb seemed to appear everywhere, at the hardware store where Elias picked up supplies, at the community center where he volunteered, even on the winding forest trails where Elias went to clear his mind. Each time, Caleb's presence was a quiet force, never pushy but always there, like a lighthouse in a storm. One evening, as Elias swept the diner's floor after closing, Caleb walked in, his jacket damp from the autumn drizzle. "You're working late," he said, leaning against the counter. "Gotta earn my keep," Elias replied, trying to sound casual. He paused, broom in hand. "Why do you keep showing up? I'm nobody special." Caleb's eyes softened. "You're wrong about that. I see strength in you, Elias. The kind that comes from surviving what others couldn't." Elias laughed bitterly. "Strength? My ex said I was too broken to bond. Said I'd never be enough for anyone." Caleb's jaw tightened, a flicker of anger crossing his face. "Your ex sounds like a fool. And I'd wager he's wrong about you in every way that matters." The words hit Elias like a punch, stealing his breath. He wanted to argue, to tell Caleb he was mistaken, but the sincerity in the older man's voice stopped him. For the first time since Shane's betrayal, Elias felt seen not as a broken omega, but as someone worthy of respect. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. Caleb shared stories of his pack, his late wife, and the weight of leading a community that didn't always understand his progressive views. Elias, in turn, opened up about his childhood in foster care, the bullying he'd faced for being different, and the love he'd thought he'd found with Shane. Caleb listened without judgment, his presence a steady anchor in Elias's turbulent world. But the past wasn't done with Elias. One crisp October morning, as he walked to the diner, a familiar figure stepped out of a pickup truck. Shane. His blonde hair was shorter now, his jaw set with determination, but his eyes held the same arrogance that had once charmed Elias and then destroyed him. "Elias," Shane called, striding toward him. "You thought you could just run away. This is my father's town. You don't get to hide from me." Elias froze, his heart hammering. "What do you want, Shane?" "I want you to come back," Shane said, his voice low and dangerous. "You don't belong here. You're not one of them." Before Elias could respond, a shadow fell over them. Caleb stepped between them, his presence like a wall. "You're a long way from Brooklyn, son," he said to Shane, his tone icy. "And you're not welcome to harass anyone in my town." Shane's eyes narrowed. "This is between me and Elias. Dad, stay out of it." Caleb didn't budge. "Not anymore. Elias is under my protection now. You've got no claim here." The air crackled with tension, and Elias felt the weight of Caleb's words settle over him like a shield. Shane glared, but something in his father's unwavering stance made him back off. With a final, venomous look at Elias, Shane turned and stalked away. Caleb turned to Elias, his expression softening. "You okay?" Elias nodded, though his hands were shaking. "Why did you do that?" "Because," Caleb said, his voice low and steady, "no one gets to hurt you here. Not while I'm around." That night, Elias couldn't sleep. The memory of Caleb standing up to Shane replayed in his mind, each word a spark that lit something new inside him. He lay in his rented room above the diner, staring at the ceiling, wondering how a man like Caleb, powerful, respected, untouchable, could see anything worth protecting in someone like him. The next morning, Elias found Caleb waiting outside the diner, leaning against a weathered oak tree. The early light caught the silver in his hair, and his smile was soft, almost boyish. "Thought you might want company on your walk," he said. Elias hesitated, then fell into step beside him. They wandered down a trail that wound through the forest, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. For a while, neither spoke, the silence comfortable yet charged with unspoken questions. Finally, Caleb broke it. "Shane's always been intense," he said, his voice heavy. "I raised him to be strong, but I didn't teach him to be cruel. I'm sorry for what he did to you." Elias stopped, surprised. "It's not your fault. You're not responsible for him." "Maybe not," Caleb said, his gaze distant. "But I'm responsible for this town, for the people in it, including you." He turned to Elias, his eyes searching. "I meant what I said yesterday. You're not alone here." The words stirred something deep in Elias, a warmth that scared him as much as it thrilled him. He'd spent so long guarding his heart, convinced he was too damaged to be loved. But Caleb's steady presence was chipping away at that belief, and it terrified him. Over the next few weeks, their bond grew. Caleb invited Elias to pack meetings, introducing him to the community as a guest, not an outsider. The pack was a mix of traditionalists and those who, like Caleb, believed in change. Some eyed Elias with suspicion, whispering about his Omega status and his city roots. But Caleb's support silenced their doubts. Elias began to feel like he belonged, a sensation so foreign it left him dizzy. One evening, at a bonfire gathering, Caleb pulled Elias aside. The firelight danced in his eyes as he handed Elias a carved wooden pendant, a wolf's head with intricate details. "Made this for you," Caleb said, his voice low. "It's a tradition in our pack. Means you're one of us." Elias's fingers trembled as he took it. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. "You don't have to say anything," Caleb replied, stepping closer. His hand brushed Elias's, and the touch sent a jolt through him, electric and undeniable. For a moment, they stood there, the world narrowing to the space between them, the crackle of the fire fading into the background. But the moment shattered when Shane appeared, his face twisted with anger. "You're making a fool of yourself, Dad," he spat, his voice carrying over the crowd. "He's an Omega. He's nothing. And you're throwing away your legacy for him." The pack fell silent, all eyes on Caleb. Elias's heart sank, expecting Caleb to back down, to prioritize his son and his reputation. But Caleb's voice was steel. "My legacy is this pack, Shane. And Elias is part of it now. If you can't accept that, you're the one who doesn't belong." The words hung heavy in the air. Shane's face flushed with rage, but he turned and stormed off into the darkness. The pack murmured, some in approval, others in shock. Elias felt exposed, vulnerable, but Caleb's hand on his shoulder grounded him. "I'm sorry," Elias said later, as they walked back to town. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't," Caleb said firmly. "Shane's fighting his own battles. And I'm fighting for what's right." He paused, his voice softening. "For you." Elias's breath caught. He wanted to believe Caleb, to lean into the possibility of something more. But fear held him back. I'm not what you think I am," he said, his voice breaking. "Shane was right about one thing. I'm broken." Caleb stopped, turning Elias to face him. "You're not broken," he said, his voice fierce with conviction. "You're human. You've survived things most people couldn't. And that makes you stronger than anyone I know." Tears stung Elias's eyes, but before he could respond, Caleb pulled him into a hug. It was warm, solid, and for the first time in years, Elias felt safe. He let himself lean into it, just for a moment, letting the weight of his past fall away. But peace was fleeting. The next day, rumors spread through the town Shane was rallying the traditionalists, claiming Caleb's affection for Elias was a betrayal of pack values. Whispers of a Challenger formal contest for leadership began to circulate. Elias overheard two pack members at the diner, their voices low but urgent. Shane's saying Caleb's lost his way. One said, "If he pushes this, it could tear the pack apart." Elias's stomach churned. He'd come here to escape drama, not create it. But the thought of Caleb losing everything because of him was unbearable. That night, he found Caleb at the community center, going over pack records. "You don't have to do this," Elias said, his voice trembling. "I can leave. I don't want to be the reason your pack falls apart." Caleb looked up, his expression unyielding. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "This isn't just about you, Elias. It's about what this pack stands for. If we can't accept someone like you, someone who's fought to be here, then we've already lost." The challenge came faster than anyone expected. Shane, backed by a vocal minority of the pack, demanded a formal meeting at the old quarry, a place steeped in pack tradition. Elias stood at the edge of the crowd, his heart pounding as Caleb faced his son under the cold November moon. The air was thick with tension, the pack divided between loyalty to Caleb and fear of change. Shane's voice rang out, accusing Caleb of abandoning their values for an outsider. "He's an Omega," Shane sneered, pointing at Elias. "He's weak, untested, and you're choosing him over your own blood." Caleb's response was calm but unyielding. "This pack isn't about blood. It's about strength, loyalty, and heart. Elias has more of all three than you've shown tonight." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others glaring. Shane's face twisted with fury. "Then prove it," he said. "Face me in the challenge. Let the pack decide who leads." Elias's breath caught. A challenge wasn't just a lgbt, it was a physical contest, steeped in ritual, where the loser could be exiled or worse. He grabbed Caleb's arm as the crowd dispersed. "Don't do this," he pleaded. "Not for me." Caleb's eyes softened, but his resolve was iron. "I'm doing this for all of us," he said. "For the pack. For you. For what I believe in." The days leading up to the challenge were a blur of preparation and dread. Elias helped Caleb train, though his own strength felt inadequate. He watched Caleb spar with pack members, his movements fluid yet powerful, a reminder of why he'd led for decades. But Shane was younger, faster, and fueled by a hunger for power that made him dangerous. The night before the challenge, Elias found Caleb by the river, skipping stones across the water. The moonlight cast shadows on his face, highlighting the lines of a life lived with purpose. "I'm scared," Elias admitted, sitting beside him. "If you lose." "I won't," Caleb said, his voice steady. He turned to Elias, his hand finding his. "But if I do, promise me you'll keep fighting. For yourself. For us." Elias's throat tightened. "Us." Caleb's smile was soft, almost shy. "I've lived a long time, Elias. Lost a lot. But you make me feel like I'm starting over." He leaned closer, his breath warm against Elias's cheek. "I want you as my mate. Not because you're an Omega, but because you're you." The confession hit Elias like a tidal wave. He'd spent so long believing he was unworthy, but Caleb's words shattered that lie. He leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that was soft, tentative, then deepening with a hunger that left them both breathless. For the first time, Elias let himself believe in a future where he could be loved. But the challenge loomed. The quarry was packed with pack members, their faces a mix of anticipation and unease. Shane stood at one end, his stance aggressive, while Caleb exuded a quiet strength. The rules were simple, a test of endurance, skill, and will. No weapons, no mercy. The fight was brutal. Shane struck fast, his youth giving him an edge, but Caleb's experience kept him steady. Blows landed, dust rose, and the crowd's cheers grew frantic. Elias watched, his heart in his throat, as Caleb took a hard hit to the ribs. But he didn't falter. With a surge of strength, Caleb pinned Shane to the ground, his voice low but clear. Yield. Shane struggled, then went still, his chest heaving. The crowd held its breath. Finally, Shane nodded, defeated. The pack erupted in cheers, but Elias only saw Caleb, bloodied but standing tall. As the crowd dispersed, Shane approached Elias, his expression unreadable. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "This isn't over. You'll never be one of us." Before Elias could respond, Caleb was there, his presence a shield. "He's more one of us than you'll ever be," he said. Shane glared but backed off, disappearing into the night. The aftermath of the challenge brought a fragile peace. Caleb's victory solidified his leadership, but the pack remained divided. Some embraced Elias, moved by Caleb's defense of him, while others whispered their doubts. Elias felt the weight of their judgment, but found strength in Caleb's unwavering support. One evening, as winter crept into the mountains, Caleb invited Elias to his cabin. The fire crackled, casting a warm glow over the room. Caleb poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing one to Elias. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. Elias clinked his against Caleb's, his heart full. "To us," he said softly. They talked for hours, sharing dreams and fears. Caleb spoke of his hopes for the pack, his desire to build a community where everyone could belong. Elias shared his own dream, to create a safe space for Omegas like him, a place where they could heal and thrive. Caleb listened, his eyes bright with pride. "You're not broken, Elias," he said, setting his glass down. "You're whole. And I want you by my side, as my mate, my equal." Tears welled in Elias's eyes. He'd spent so long running from his pain. But here, with Caleb, he felt like he could finally stop. "I want that too," he whispered. Their kiss was a promise, a vow sealed in the quiet of the night. But the world outside wasn't done with them. The next morning, a letter arrived, slipped under Elias's door. It was from Shane, now exiled from the pack. "You'll ruin him, just like you ruin everything. Leave before it's too late." Elias's hands shook as he read it, old insecurities clawing at him. He showed the letter to Caleb, expecting anger, but Caleb's response was calm. "Shane's wrong," he said. "You're not ruining anything. You're making it better." Together, they burned the letter in the fireplace, watching the flames consume Shane's words. It was a small act, but it felt like a victory. Elias knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Prejudice lingered, and the pack's wounds would take time to heal. But with Caleb by his side, he felt ready to face it. Months later, Elias stood at the community center, now a safe haven for Omegas and others who'd felt outcast. The pack had begun to change, slowly embracing Caleb's vision of inclusivity. Elias wore the wolf pendant Caleb had given him, a symbol of his place in this new family. One spring evening, as they walked hand in hand through the blooming forest, Caleb stopped, pulling Elias close. "I love you," he said, his voice steady and sure. "And I'll spend every day proving you're enough." Elias smiled, tears of joy in his eyes. "You already have," he said. They kissed under the stars, their bond a testament to resilience, love, and the power of second chances. In a world that had tried to break them, they'd built something unbreakably, a love that defied doubt, a home where they both belonged.